Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Hello, how are you? I want to just jump right in and say anger. I want to talk about anger. Anger has come up in the topic of conversation a couple times in the past few weeks or so, but one of those times was someone who knows me very well and viewed my anger toward a situation as being hypocritical. And so I'm speaking to other people who put their well being first, their self management, their personal development, their mindfulness practice or meditation practice, their yoga practice, whatever the case might be, something that offsets, better processes, or reduces stress, right? That's where my work is just reducing stress and in that experiencing a better quality of life, an improved quality of life, obviously a more harmonious existence. But with all that said, to someone who doesn't see either A, the big picture, or B, all of the little things that go into it, someone is really quick to judge, react, and say, you're being a hypocrite. But to me, that's wild. It's wild that a human, regardless of what their practice is, in today's age, knowing that I'm not at the peak of my practice, knowing myself and knowing where I've come from, that there aren't human elements to to our condition or our experience that still evoke an emotional response. And as if we're not allowed to have those. Well, I'm giving you permission to have those. I'm giving you permission to experience the lower negative vibrational frequencies. But what's the best way to process them? And offer some acceptance that every situation's not going to be the same. When you're alone, when it's a certain set of circumstances versus another, whether it's the first time it's come across your plate of, your desk, if you will, or whether it's the 16th time. All of these things factor in, and that's okay. That is okay. Are you processing it in a way that is healthier than before? Are you, in my experience, let's bring it up. In my experience, if I'm angry, really, really angry about something, I want to resort to using the old coping mechanisms. And those old coping mechanisms are searching for a feeling of relief, a feeling of serotonin kicking in, or dopamine, or something, just some sense of and so whether that is, or maybe it's I surrender, whatever the case is, you're searching for a feeling, and somewhere along the way, we trained our brains that smoking was the answer. Drinking was the answer. That, certain foods were the answer. And in a sense, they are. Your brain is trained for that. And to be fair, some of those things do in fact trigger chemical, physiological changes that give us that sense of relief. And so it's not, that's just the facts, okay? And when you can create a space, even if it's after a reaction, if you've had a reaction, if you can create the space to not spiral downward, I think that's really good progress. I think that if you can create the space to say, it's a choice, it's a choice, it's a choice, it's a choice, and keep repeating that to yourself. I'm choosing, I'm choosing, I'm choosing, it's a choice, I have the capability, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, count, do whatever, do something to interrupt the pattern that you are in, because, and I'm recording this after one of these moments, because that's when I feel like it's most clear to me to what that experience is. And for you on the other end, you know exactly what I'm talking about when you're in those anger moments. And sometimes, yes, I'm proud of myself, and that moment between stimulus and response happened before my response. And other times it's after, but I'm still catching it. And I'm saying, how do I want to handle this? How do I want to handle this? What's the best way to handle this? Breathe and allow myself to feel good. Allow myself to feel good, right? That's a feeling that you're searching for. You want to feel better. You want to feel good. What's the best way to do that? That's not going to be super destructive. That's not going to set you back if you're sober and not, using drugs or alcohol or smoking or something like that. If you're watching your food, watching your diet, being really specific about what's crossing your lips, that's going to be an important part. If you have accepted that, anger is something that's natural and to be processed, and you set up, maybe you set up little planks of wood in your garage that you're allowed to break. That's okay. I think that that's okay. And that's for a scale, maybe it's a higher end scale episode. If you're just perturbed or pissed off at something, okay, don't go breaking bricks. Don't go, you can, this is a space of non-judgment, but you understand what I'm saying as far as the Richter scale, right? Like if we're just sort of annoyed at something, like, oh, another piece of this crap mail came in, I don't think that really warrants, breaking wood or brooms or, whatever the case might be, but maybe it does to you, that's the thing, is that stuff that gets me fired up may not be the same stuff that gets you fired up. And the same stuff that gets me fired up on Saturday, April 20th, might not get me fired up on April 21st. There's a lot of things that go into an emotional response. Okay, so if we can govern ourselves to recognize what are the triggers, what kind of exacerbated my lower frequencies, my anger, my greed, my jealousy, whatever the case is. Was I really hungry? Was I tired? Was I feeling really lonely? Was I feeling really distraught? Was I feeling like I'm doing a lot of things and I'm not seeing the results? That can be really frustrating. If you're training the dog and the training is challenging, that can be really frustrating. And when it's coupled with those other things, maybe if it's coupled with one thing, okay, it hit you on a Richter scale of, earthquake scale of, maybe it's a 2.5. If it's in combination with 4 of those things, you're on the way out the door, now you've got to backtrack, you're hungry, you're trying to get to where you're late, whatever this recipe is. I talk about recipes because I believe that in life, whether it's a divorce or whether it's just a moment of anger, there's always a recipe. And if it's one ingredient, usually a recipe requires more than one ingredient, but that's what I'm saying. Whether it's 2 or 3 ingredients or whether it's 13, it matters, right? And there's the big pieces to that ingredient. There's the big moving pieces in your life. And then there's the herbs. And then there's the spices. And maybe some condiments in there, right? So you can kind of see that, like if you're sprinkled on a layer of oregano, that is maybe not as impactful as the meat or potatoes of the dish, and equate this to the recipe for anger and, all of the depression, whatever. It might not be as big as those moving pieces, like you lost your job, you got fired, you didn't get the next job. But the layer on top, it still matters to what that end result is. So, for all of my fellow well-being folks, like-minded individuals, yogis, meditators, self-development minded people, it's okay. I'm giving myself permission. I'm giving you permission. I think you should give yourself permission. Sometimes, somewhere in our conditioning, or maybe it's in the DNA, who knows, somewhere along the way, sometimes we're, taught not to give ourselves permission, especially when we're maybe seen as role models, or when we're seen as people who are full of light and love. And yes, you're right. It's still a part of Renee, even though it's not the best part of Renee. So have compassion for yourself. Have compassion for your fellow individuals. Seek first to understand yourself and other individuals. Practice non-judgment. Be kind to yourself, to others. I wish you well. Namaste.